Okay, we got a book today about thinking in systems and mental models. Let's try to figure out what the fuck this book about. I hope this interesting. And yeah, this by Marcus Paulson. As usual, I'm opening like any seems like interesting chapter, and after like we will discuss and like I read I and at the same time I will give my own comments. Okay, this one about helpful principles on time management. Each principle is closely connected to the other one, so you need to examine each one thoroughly. And it also a step like a stepwise guide to time management, and like these principles will help you become like more like a time efficient, and each task like should draw you like closer to your goals. The principles and importance of setting like the right goals should be meaningful and important to you. Yeah, for now it's kind of like a obvious shit. Divide big tasks into minor pieces, and there's no like principle of time management that goes like to eat a whale you need to cut it into smaller pieces. Yeah, it's like elephant or like shark, whatever you want. The point is you gotta like divide the big task to the smaller ones so you can step by step solve like smaller problems. And like if you have a very like a big project, you might be like overwhelmed by the like complexities and lack of clarity on how to do it. But dividing it into that kind of like smaller activities, so you will have a clear path of how to get it done. And at the end of the day, it may turn out not like as a big and difficult as you expected, and savory, and like minor things first. And when like planning your activities, you should like treat the like important and savory things first. And in order like for you to like remember this time like management principle, there is a saying for it. For example, eat like the frogs first. In other words, do the most complicated thing first. And starting the day with like such activities will make you like feel revealed, and the following like a task will be much easier. But if you don't do the unsavory things first after doing the other activities, you will think of the unsavory ones you left all day and feel bad that you still need to do them. But at the same time you will have like less energy, and that's another great point, that it's better to do the most complicated things first when you got like the most energy. And also like you don't have to eat yourself like why I'm like wasting my time and etc. Also, you should do minor things early in the day, as it will feel like you have done much in the first few minutes of the day. And these tasks can include calling your companions, like checking email, composing a message to a friend, or like planning some events for the day and the like. Keep breaks in mind. You might feel high spirited and productive for a while, but gradually you start losing the vibe. and for the rest of the day you end up leaving most tasks unfinished. And what could be the cause? Simply put, the lack of breaks in your work. And yeah, take a pause, rest, work. Even a small rest for a couple minutes will give you energy, so you can keep going. All right. Next paragraph. You or your supervisor might be of the opinion that if you don't utilize all 8 of the working hours daily, you might do less. But this assumption is wrong, and you may be, able to accomplish more and be more productive during the day if you take breaks at intervals. It could be, as short as a 5 minute break for, espresso, a breath of a fresh air, a simple snack, or a short, a stroll around the office building. And during this period, I advise you to stay away from your laptop and, if possible, your working place, so you can relax. Stay away from your phone, social media, etc. Also, take business off your mind. So kind of like a short digital detox. Okay, this kind of things, yeah, interesting, but again, nothing special. Maybe it's going to be something interesting. Okay, let's go further. Alright, chapter 2, 40 mental models. Your mind has a large series of mental models for different situations, but it tends to resort a certain one for each situation that it perceives as similar to one it has already encountered, even if the situation is actually entirely unprecedented. And cognitive biases explore some mental models that you default to in certain situations, which can pose challenges or lead to poor decisions. Yeah, in other words, simply speaking, even a situation time changes, most people stuck in old behavior because for them it's hard to adapt to the new behavior. And I think we can tell that's biases like confirmation bias going to be relevant to say about this kind of shit. Yeah, especially old people, when it's already 2026, but the way of how they're living, it could be 20th century. So the brain kind of ignoring the new environment, and they just don't like challenges. I remember when I got my first a post grad job, before I had only worked in fast food. So my mind assumed my new job would be similar. Of course, I knew I would not be flipping burgers, but I assumed the hierarchy and policies and stress would be the same. I entered the job with the wrong attitude as a result, and I was in for a rude awakening about what a corporate life is really like. After the adjustment period, I loved it, but I think it would have been a lot easier had I not entered the job with a fast food job mental model in my mind. And here's some of the most common mental models that you use, and how to recognize them. Most of these models are helpful in their own ways, though some can be restrictive. Learning to tell when you like using a model and how to adjust the model for like a maximum reward is crucial to a good life. Okay, let's go back. Let's back to business. So the first one seems like author finally taking final thing about the first mental model, and this called inversion. The inversion mental model, though listed under the problem-solving category, is actually like one of the most powerful tools in the mental model toolbox. The inversion method blossomed from the mathematical elements of like a German mathematician, Carl Gustav Jacobi, who worked on elliptical functions. He would solve his problems with the following strategy. Man muss immer umkehren. This means invert, always invert. For now, I don't get like what's the fucking point. Okay, let's try to figure out. From that, though sprung, what the fuck is that? The inversion mental model used to show that you cannot just look at your problems in one manner. In order to get the entire scope of a project, you have to look at it forward and backward. Forward and backward. Like from the beginning to the end and from the end to the beginning. I didn't get actually exactly, but okay, let's read. When you uncover like truths about the exact opposite, the problem does not really come naturally to us, but some of the most brilliant people in history have solved problems doing just that. I think it's another way to say that fancy term reverse engineering when but not exactly, but kinda, we like reverse engineering, which it is like when we don't know how to solve the problem, and instead of like step one, step two, etc., we trying to figure out the result first, like pretending that like we already solved by like by creating, doing whatever decision, and after we try to figure out how to actually come to that decision. I hope that makes sense. Okay, let's try to get this exact point of like mental model of inversion. Don't expect to always invert your problems and magically find the answers. It does not quite work like that. What it will do is give you another perspective to draw from, which will allow you like to see problematic areas as well as clues toward the path you need to take in order to break through those problems. Inversion is the process of taking a problem and flipping it upside down in order to see it from a new perspective. I mean, metaphorically it sounds interesting, but I want to get like a practical how we can do this. Instead of asking what is the best way to do X, you could invert the question by saying what is the worst thing I could do for X? instead of asking what is the best way to do X, I could invert the question by saying what is the worst thing I could do for X and how to avoid that. Oh, that's interesting. So in other words, it is like typically asking how, like for example, how can I can solve this problem. I can flip it and say what I should not do. In other words, how to avoid XYZ in order to get what we want instead of like thinking what we should do. Yeah, it's more about like focusing on opposite side, like what I should not do in order to have like a less mistakes. The premise is that it's easier to think about what you want to avoid rather than what you want to achieve. Imagine you want to lose weight. A traditional goal might be I want to lose like a 10 pounds. While this is somewhat specific, it does not give a roadmap for achievement. Instead, think about the problem in reverse. What are the things you're trying to avoid? Perhaps you don't want to get tired when playing with your kids, or you're trying to avoid diabetes. By reframing the problem, you can come up with more defined steps to reach your desired outcome. Yeah, that's a good analogy that, instead of thinking like, I want to do sport in order to be jacked, which just makes sense. You can also think like, I gotta do sport in order to prevent like whatever bunch of actually disease and be healthy. So in other words, in this actual situation, focusing to the negativity helps because you being proactive against like a negative outcome, which is as like author telling us helpful in order to see another perspective. And yeah, it's just like another way of thinking, another mental model which give us another angle to look to the situation. And some people actually get motivated by fear, and if like being jacked not like motivate some people gonna be motivated by fear, like having like diabetes, for example, disease, and after that they like, holy fuck, I gotta like go for running tomorrow. By saying I want to lose like a 10 pounds, you have infinite options to get that result. You could do it through many different types of exercise programs, hundreds of different diets, or a combination of diet and exercise. As we covered earlier in the paradox of choice, if options are limited, they are more difficult to choose, and this makes you more likely to fail. Yeah, it is like being in a supermarket where like millions of shelves and a bunch of choices, and that makes like this, like in one hand, for the reason why they do that, in order to like intentionally confuse you to buy more, but in another hand it's also for you make the process harder. You get confused, like and if the situation gonna be opposite, like you just have like a three choices, you're gonna make your decision much faster, and you're not gonna be overloaded cognitively by the millions of choices. And by reframing, the question and looking at it through inversion, clearer options appear. If you don't want to get tired, like when playing with your kids, you probably need more exercise. Finding a program that will get you in a shape Okay, we get this the meaning of the first mental model, which is called inversion, which is about flipping the question, like aka framing your problem, and instead of like a saying how to reach, how to what I should do in order to get this goal, you saying in the opposite way what I should not do in order to avoid possible mistakes in advance. Okay, the second mental model from this book, first principle. Using a first principle approach to think basically refers to like a breaking down a process to its like a basic components and concepts. A first principle is a basic assumption that cannot be broken down any further. And it involves like a looking at a situation at its like a foundation, and like a starting from the known facts, then building from these basics. Okay, like this mental model, which is called first principle thinking, we start here from the facts. In other words, we not relying on opinions, but like on like solid evidence. And when we understand the first principle of a system, we can deconstruct. We can deconstruct it and then construct it again more effectively. And like these principles allows us to avoid imitations by not following what has already been created by others, but allowing us to build our own systems and conclusions by deconstructing existing concepts, then using the core elements to create something new. Yeah, that's a good analogy, like first principle thinking. When we, like for example, if we have like some problem, we I guess learning some another like how someone else was solving the same problem, and instead of like blindly copying the way how that problem was solved or created, like a product or service, we like a Lego pieces, separating them, and again instead of like a blindly following their order, we learning what exactly like a fundamentals, the basics of that like a product or service, and by adapting their approach to our situation context, we can on top of that put our own like ideas, and we just borrowing the basic principles, not all things like a copycat. Okay, so that was like first principle. The third one, which is ironically called second order. Okay, the second order thinking, like another mental model from this book, requires us to consider our actions, the immediate consequences of those actions, as well as the long-term effects that are bound to like arise as a result of the choices you make. And the question, and then what, directs second-order thinking. In a hypothetical situation where you turn between finishing your assignment and going out with friends, when you weigh the options of staying in and like finishing your paper or going out with your friends for a drink, going out would seem more gratifying. However, if you ask yourself, and then what, you would be likely to realize which of the two options might have negative consequences. Thinking beyond the immediate outcome of a decision to the consequences is crucial in making decisions that have lasting positive effects and in ensuring that we're not destroyed from our long-term objectives. So simply put it, second order thinking, if like for example, I don't know, it's related with first principle thinking. Like first principle thinking, it's about learning basics. Yeah. Okay. The simple summary of the second order thinking, when you deciding not just in terms of like a getting short term objective profits benefits, but you're also thinking in terms of like a long perspective, like or if you do like this right now, what's going to be the consequences like after like a month or 1 year. And I guess if the answer is positive, it makes sense to do so. Okay, the second order thinking about thinking in a long term. Alright, the next one, Pareto principle, also known as the 80-20 rule, is the Pareto principle, and the law of the vital few and the factor sparsity principle. Ultimately, the rule states that you will see results of like a 20% for 80% of the effort exerted. And this principle, yeah, I guess most of you guys familiar with this Pareto principle, 80-20, which is basically about that actually just few things gives you the most outcome, or like in a business, just actually few customers gives you the most profit. And we can call it priority, which practically speaking helping us understand what is actually our priority. And in other words, instead of like trying to do all things, we gotta focus just to the main things, which gives us the best outcome. Okay, this principle is translated into mental model for the use of searching for answers, facts and information, a vital part of like working through any mental model. To be more productive, you're simply searching for the vital few in the vast like a landscape of the trivial many. And information is almost infinite and might as well be when compared to how much our brains can hold. Yeah, it's another good point to follow Pareto principle, that it's not just about priority, it's also that biologically we cannot think about many things. That's why we put into our brain, metaphorically speaking, just like important things. And when like searching for the specific information you need, you have to push aside the noise and find the vital few pieces that will help you work through your mental model. Okay, that was Pareto principle. Okay, so we discussed like 4 mental models. Of course, it's like this book got many of them. For now, I guess it was interesting. Let me know in comments and see you next time.